Hello everyone, welcome to today's video where we are going to take a look at round 10 of the Chennai Open being held at Chennai from the 2nd to the 9th of January. Well, it ended yesterday, so which was held in Chennai, I should say. But yeah, um, I was facing a 13 or 14-year-old kid from Delhi. His name is Rosh Jain. Who is read like 2072 or something, and he was like 2380 when he was like 11 years old. But uh, seeing his game, since then he had dropped down a lot of elo points. But I really didn't think that he's that strong while analyzing his games. But let's get into the game. He plays e4, I played e5. I was trying to play a more strategic opening and kind of keep more pieces on the board, because it was after this tragic loss in the ninth round where my opponent offered me a draw and I didn't take it and then lost, and by over pushing, of course. I wanted to win this game at any cost, which is actually a very wrong psychological decision. I should have played it my normal openings and then tried to uh, beat him on experience. But after knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rai Lopez a6, bishop f4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, d6. My opponent plays a4, and the point of playing d6 first before castles is that after castles a4, I do not have this bishop d7 move. I have to develop my bishop to b7, which is not the most ideal square in the Rai Lopez, in this structure at least, um, because I want to develop my bishop on this diagonal. So I played d6 first, because after a4 I can play bishop d7, and after ab5 my rook is guarded by the queen. So after c3 castles, my opponent plays d4, and here I was already feeling a bit uneasy because I didn't know the theory, and or I knew it, but I saw it long back, and I played ed4. Well, the point is that after something like uh, in the normal move order, after c3 castles, if white plays d4, which is the e8 variation, uh, black can play ed4, cd4, and bishop to g4, putting more pressure on the d4 pawn. And I thought that yes, white has this extra move of a4 in this position after cd4, bishop g4, but I thought that maybe it won't make that much of a difference. But I was wrong, and after ab5, rook a8, queen 8, my opponent plays knight c3, hinting at playing either bishop d5 or knight d5 next, and I played knight f5, and he plays bishop c2. Maybe knight b5 was a better move, because I saw after something like queen b7, I think rook b doesn't work because of does knight c7 work? Knight c7, just queen b7 is there, but now the point is there's knight d5 hitting the bishop on e7, but knight b3, yeah, it doesn't work. Maybe knight c7 doesn't work, still I have to play bishop f4. And now I can't take this pawn because he's now threatening to go knight takes c7, so maybe I have to play queen b7, and now bishop f4, now I have knight takes c4, and that's what I had seen during the game. And I thought I should be fine here after d5 next move, but he plays bishop c2, a more safer choice, and after b4 knight e2, I played c5, and here surprisingly enough my opponent lashed out with h3 without even me think. With, like, you can see, he just took a second, right? And after h3, bishop f3, gf3, I played queen c8, hitting the h3 pawn and maybe trying to put some pressure on the c file. After I play cd4, he plays king h2, and here I made a very positional mistake, huge positional mistake, I would say. I played knight c6, provoking d5. I was already in an uneasy situation in this position, because white has a very strong center here, and has the double bishop pair, and he has this open g file which he can gang up on, and but his king is a bit weak, but it's not so clear how I can capitalize on that. The engine says that the best move here is something like queen b7, waiting for white to move his knight. I was also afraid of white's knight g3 and knight f5 ideas, hitting both the bishop on e7 and the g7 pawn, after which he can just play rook g1 and put more pressure on the g7 point. But the point is, after knight g3, now I can play knight c6, and after d5 I have knight d4, and I'm stopping knight f5 now, and that's pretty much it. My knight on d4 is now very active. I can play something like knight d7, bishop f6 and knight e5 next, and my pieces are going to come into life soon, and even sometimes I have some ideas like b3, c4, c3, trying to create a passer on the queen side. So I played knight c6, which is a big positional error, I would say, and after d5 I played knight d4. I was initially planning to go knight e5, but I thought that after something like knight g3, of course there's no f4 because knight f3 loses an exchange due to the fork, knight g3, and now I have no move because white is just going to kick out my knight on e5 with f4, and I do not have a really decent square to go to with my knight. And so, and also, like, the combination of knight and two bishops is like very strong compared to two knights and a bishop, and so I wanted to exchange off a pair of knights. And after knight d4, knight d4, c d4, yes, I have a bad pawn structure, but I was thinking maybe his light square bishop is not so good. He plays bishop a4, queen c5 and bishop c6. Now his bishop is controlling some key squares on a8, and my rook cannot get active on the f file due to that. And here I played knight h5, trying to gain some activity with bishop f6, bishop e5, and gain some control over the dark squares. I'm trying to make the dark square strategy work because I have the dark square bishop. But he plays f4, and after g6 he plays queen d3, stopping any of my counterplay with d3. I was actually planning to go d3 at some point or the other because it activates my queen, because my queen on c5 is not doing much, it's pretty dull, and after d3 it hits the f2 pawn, and some sort of an activity is springing up in my position. But after queen d3 I played bishop h4, hitting the f2 pawn. A small trick is that if white plays king g2, you can pause the video and think for a bit what black can do here. Yeah, there's a simple tactic with queen c1, rook c1 and knight f4 check, and now black is a piece up and he's just going to win very easily. So he plays accurately king g1, and I played I thought for a long time here, but I failed to come up with a plan. It's already a very hard position for black. I was saying that white is planning to go bishop d2 and rook c1 next, hitting my queen, and then when I move my queen, he can just take the b4 pawn, or if I move to my queen to b6, he can just play rook c4. Like, a sample variation might be f6, bishop d2, and something like king g7. There's rook c1, queen b6, and now rook c4, and both my pawns are going to fall at some point. But I also saw that after bishop d2 there's some interesting idea with g5, and I'm trying to gain some control over the dark squares, but I was really worried about this bishop, so I was considering this move f5, but the engine says that after bishop f4, bishop f4, gf4, the position is approximately equal. But I was like, how in the world can I ever activate this bishop, It's so difficult. But maybe the bishop on h4 is doing a great job itself, and I was also thinking the f4 pawn is pretty weak, and maybe rook f7, rook g7 is coming next, and if I manage to exchange the rooks, then it should be a clear draw, and maybe this is what I should have gone for. But I lashed out with f5. I thought that my position is over, so I need to create some complications, and it's a decisive mistake. And this is what happens when you are in a practically passive situation, that you cannot just play passively. It's like engines can defend this position as black, but for a human being it's really difficult to play so safely, so passively, and make no active moves, make no threats. So um, like practically positionally my position was already close to lost. I played f5, and after e5 d5 f5 I gave up my I gave my voluntarily gave my opponents two connected passers, but I was hoping that after f4 rook f5 rook g5 I have some counterplay. He played bishop d2, and after rook f5 he played rook e4, and I was pretty surprised how accurately he's playing in this position, for saving the bishop and then playing rook e4 to take the pawn on d4, not rook d1. By the way, I think there's something wrong with that. Yeah, maybe rook f5, and after queen f4 there's queen c2, and if queen d2 there's always queen e4, and then rook g5, and there's a lot of counterplay springing up in my position. And if something like, yeah, and that's why rook d1 is not working, I think. But he played bishop d2 rook f5 rook e4 rook g5 check king f1. I tried to complicate matters and played bishop takes f2, but after king f2 rook g3 it doesn't really work. Queen d4 queen c2, I'm threatening to go rook d3 next, and also something like queen d1 and queen g1 met, or queen f3 rook g1, something uh, I'm trying to create some counterplay at least in this position, but it doesn't work really. He accurately plays the best move in this position, d6. I was also considering for a long time rook f4, but I would have played something like rook d3, and then this piece is falling and I'm winning, I think. And I also saw queen b4, where I was planning to go queen d1, queen d1, and after queen c7 this king g7, queen c7, king h6, and now after bishop f4 there is knight f4, king g3, knight h5 check, and after something like king f2, I think it's a really, I think I'm getting some sort of a perpetual here, because the rook alone cannot guard the king, because I'm getting some perpetual. And there's always queen g3 check here, and I think I'll be alive in this position. But he plays d6, and his idea is to go either bishop d5 check or queen c4. I initially planned to go queen d1, but the problem is after bishop d5 check, if I go king f8 there's rook f4, knight f4, queen f4, and he's winning my rook next move, and it's over. And if king g7 there's e6 check, and after king h6 again there's bishop f4 and winning my king, my queen. But after d6 I played rook d3, and now this falls into another trick, queen c4 check, which he played of course, and after queen c4 rook c4 rook d2, we have equal material now, 4 pawns versus 4 pawns with rook knight versus rook bishop, but his disconnected passes are just too strong for me to prevent from promoting, and my knight on the rim is just doing no work. So after rook d3 bishop h4 it was a pretty easy win for him, and here I call it a day. I was really impressed by my opponent's play. He played like really great chess, and yeah, he messed up a lot. I shouldn't have gone into unfamiliar territory in the last round, and yeah, pretty bad result for me in this tournament, to be honest, especially in the last 2 rounds. I lost both rounds, and I finished like 37th, and scoring 6 out of 10. But a pretty hard tournament, because even the lower rated players are pretty well prepared here. But honestly speaking, like the 9th round game for me was very critical, and I think like if I would have drawn the game, I would have had decent chances in finishing in top 10, which is like a pretty good result in such a tournament. But yeah, I mean, the 9th round loss after my opponent offered me a draw, it's like it is psychologically very hard to accept for me, and that's why it also carried on to the final round, uh, but now I'm playing in Goa, and another tournament. In the last two tournaments I decreased around 40 rating points. It's pretty harsh for a K factor of 10, and but I I'm sure I'm going to come back pretty strong in Goa, and yeah, so stay tuned, and if you enjoyed the recap, you can hit the like and subscribe button, and yeah, the tournament in Goa is starting tomorrow, so yeah, stay tuned for the fight. And by the way, the champion here was the Indian Paniselvam from Chennai, a pretty strong and well-known player, and the second the one who came second is Venkatesh Mr. Venki and Anna, as I would call him. He's like one of my roommates in Greece, and a very very good person in general. And the third was and I am from Kolkata, my place, Aronyak Ghosh, and yeah, a pretty solid player, and yeah, and very very consistent, and yeah, I mean, pretty strong field in this tournament. I was expecting to finish in top 10, but yeah, things do not go as per expectations. It went far beyond my expectations, to be honest, and in the negative sense. But yeah, if you like the video, uh, do subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow after the first round of Goa, and have a good day, night, uh, afternoon, evening, wherever you're from, and stay tuned. Hare Krishna.